I was trying to work out how long it is since I was last in this building. It's obviously more than 2 years ago, and probably more than 3, when my world and our world was a very different place from what it is now. But it's always a pleasure to come back, and particularly as this is the community that houses my favorite Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Shekhinah. At a meeting of senior Anglican clergy at St. George's, Windsor, the Dean, who was in the chair, told the assembly, "All of us are important here, so I want no name dropping. If there's one thing the Queen and I can't stand, it's name dropping." I mention that now because there will be some name dropping in this tribute to our Platinum Queen. For all of us born after 1952, there has been no other head of state than Queen Elizabeth II. For countless UK citizens, the idea that we may someday have a new head of state is something we accept, but find hard to assimilate. Yet the first thing we must surely acknowledge is the key component of an unprecedented Platinum Royal anniversary, that though she may well be alive for a further 5 years or so, one day her reign will inevitably end. So in spite of the celebrations for this monumental anniversary, there is inevitably for any thinking person a note of impending loss. I have been a monarchist since the day when the Queen Mother paid a visit to Hove, and my mother took the 7-year-old me to stand on an island in the Kingsway to see her. The Queen Mum waved to me as her car drove past, and her smile stole my heart. Of course she did, because my mother and I were alone. There were no crowds at all. So we got the full beam, and the Queen Mum on full beam was something else. In 1952, when the Queen ascended the throne, there were far fewer UK nonagenarians than today, when there are over 600,000. The Queen's long life may be down to her maternal genes, but her longevity parallels that of many of her subjects, and there are over 13,000 centenarians as well, thanks to rising standards in medicine and healthcare in general. So the Queen, at 96, is not that strange in human terms, but as a historical figure, and spanning the years she does, her reign includes many of the events in the United Kingdom and across the globe that have shaped and changed our world. The monarchy that she inherited from her beloved father was still very redolent of late Victorian times. And that it has become what it is today is down to the late Prince Philip and to the Queen's ability to adapt and change the institution while appearing always to be the same. She has been a beacon of continuity for prime ministers from Churchill to Johnson, a sounding board, and occasionally a voice of caution, adapting seamlessly to their different characters and generations. As a repository of wisdom and experience, there is no other head of state in the world with whom she can be compared. She is sui generis. Things changed in the Middleburgh household when my wife, Zichrona Livracha, went to work at Buckingham Palace, first at the Queen's Gallery, then as a correspondence clerk answering letters sent in by the public for the ladies in waiting, then to the press office, where she was assistant to the Queen's press secretary, and finally as chief clerk, which Gilly used to translate as the Queen's office manager. She served in the press office during some of the toughest times of the Queen's reign: the breakup of 3 royal marriages, the fire in Windsor Castle, the annus horribilis that was 1992. The Queen herself remarked that 1992, the 40th anniversary of her reign, was not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure. And on September the 1st, 1997, Gilly started as chief clerk the day after Princess Diana died in Paris. No one with close connections to the palace will forget those dreadful days. The conflict between the Queen's desire to protect her bereaved grandsons and the pressure from the press and the country to comfort everyone else. Gilly told me one evening that walking into the palace through the silent crowds and the mounds of rotting flowers made her deeply uncomfortable. I can imagine that this would be the mood before a revolution, she said. But as on other occasions, though supremely on that one, the Queen spoke live to camera and everything changed. She had asserted herself as the mother of the nation and gathered us all close. Thanks to Gilly, I had the pleasure of meeting members of the royal family on many different occasions, and I have more anecdotes than I have time to share, and 1 or 2 I wouldn't dare to share. So I will restrict myself to 2, at one of which I was present. The first took place during the Queen's tour of the Caribbean in 1994, when she travelled from island to island on the royal yacht Britannia, a magical experience which Gilly loved. One evening, near the end of the tour, there was an entertainment night for everyone, royals, crew, and staff. Among the turns was a sailor doing magic tricks. He asked the audience for a watch, and when no one offered, he asked the Queen whether he could use hers. She frowned, sighed, said, "I suppose so," and took off her watch. You're not going to damage it, are you?" she asked. "No, Your Majesty," he replied, before returning to the stage and wrapping the watch in a cloth. He then produced a large hammer and told his audience that he would hit the watch inside the cloth with the hammer, say a magic word, and it would be completely undamaged. The hammer came down, and there was what Gilly described as a sickening crunch. Everyone froze, then looked at the Queen, whose face wore an expression of combined horror and fury. The hapless sailor unwrapped the cloth, and bits of the watch fell all over the floor. Tongue-tied and brick-red, the sailor scurried around picking up the bits and then went over to the Queen, wreathed in apologies, and put them in her hand. The room was silent until the Queen burst out laughing, gave the sailor back the bits, and then applauded him. She was in cahoots all the time, and it says so much about her as a person that I treasure it, even though it is only an acquired memory. My own memory is far simpler. We went and stayed at Balmoral a number of times during the summer when the royal family were in residence, staying at a lovely cottage deep in the estate called Connachat. One sunny summer morning, quite early, I had walked across the track with our dogs to let them have a run round on the grass opposite. I had just got out of bed and was wearing my Japanese dressing gown. And that was all I was wearing. I heard a car approaching, and as it rounded the second corner before the cottage, I realized that the driver was the Queen. What on earth to do? I did the only thing I would have done anyway, which was stand to attention and give a court bow. And she was gone. Later in the day, we went down to the stables to go out for a ride, and who should be in the courtyard but the Queen, getting ready to do the same as us. She smiled at Jubilee, then looked me up and down and said, "Nice to see you dressed, Rabbi Middleburgh," and giggled. It is a golden memory, that one, which I will always treasure. Everyone has their own idea of who the Queen is and what she represents to them. I'm deeply privileged to have known her, observed her in a range of situations, and am proud of my wife's association with the palace, for which the Queen twice honoured her. And it is a measure of this extraordinary nonagenarian woman that she sent me a personal comforting message of condolence when my Jubilee died, even while she still mourned the death of her beloved husband. We should all be grateful for the stability that the Queen has represented throughout her reign, the honour and dignity with which she has fulfilled her duties, and the golden example of service to the nation that she represents. I would not want to wish her to 120, but I do sincerely hope that she remains with us in as good health as possible for years to come. God save the Queen. Amen.